Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of Catholic ReCon Testimonies from Reverts and Converts. I'm your host, Eddie Trask. Before I get to this week's guest, I want to remind you to subscribe, to send other testimonies. If you know anyone that has a testimony, please send it my way. And also comment and share the videos as well. This week's guest is Taylor Kelley, who I believe I found by just doing a random YouTube search. In fact, I don't even know if I was doing a search, but his channel appeared and I started to listen to his testimony. And I said, rather than listen to it, I think I'd rather invite him on and so he can share it here. So Taylor, first of all, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
And I appreciate the fact that, and you can tell me more about it. In fact, why don't you tell me about the channel? When did it start? What is the aim of the channel? And I think one of the first videos was your testimony, and that's what caught my attention.
Yeah, I have another channel called Dojo Go. It's like a kids martial arts channel. And I one of the days I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna post a Christian message on the channel. I'm just gonna see how people respond to it. And you know, the response was tremendous. Like I got so much positivity from it. I also got some not so great comments from it, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
But then as I was posting some of these Christian messages for kids, some parents were asking me questions or rather had objections to what Catholics believe. So like they're asking like, well, do you guys worship Mary? Why don't pray to Jesus directly? So I started getting these questions in my inbox. So I was like, well, I guess I can make a channel about it. So that's kind of how it started. And the name Fortes and Fide, when I was growing up in 8th grade, I had a Dominican priest teach me theology, which was a huge blessing to be in that position. And one of the things he always put on the whiteboard was Fortes and Fide at the very top. And it stuck with me because it means strong in faith. And my purpose of the channel is to, show that when you're a Catholic, you have so much history on your side and you have so much just tradition on your side that it's really hard to be against it. At least that's what I believe, is because of the fact that it's the very first church that we see Saint Paul talk about in the New Testament. The early church fathers, like there's so much overwhelming evidence that I want to give it to people, because I feel like a lot of people misunderstand what the church actually teaches, especially I think Archbishop Fulton J. Sheen said it best. He said, there are millions of people who dislike what they think the Catholic Church teaches. Right. And I think, I see a lot of other YouTube channels like putting out Catholic content. And I think we need to combat this kind of secularism that's in our society by putting out more outright Catholic stuff. Because at first I was like, well, maybe I should just be a Christian channel. Maybe I'll appeal to more people. But then as I was doing it, I was like, you know what? I can't really help but talk about the saints, because the saints' insights are way better than my own. And the more I can share the faith that way, the more people might see like, oh, okay, that actually makes a whole lot of sense. And that's
phenomenal. Now, have there been a number of people that were following you on what is it again? Dojo
Go. Yeah.
Dojo Go. Yeah. Were there a number of people that kind of transitioned over to your channel, or did you kind of keep these things separate? And like you said, you just saw there was a pretty clear message. Maybe there's an opportunity here to defend the faith.
Yeah. So I often share the videos on my YouTube to my Instagram, because I know a lot of people from Dojo Go follow me on Instagram. So I post that there. And as far as like the content, because I have a lot of kids that watch my channel, like a lot of kids, and parents are watching too. Sure. So my goal is to basically make this channel for the parents, because the parents, they're the ones that are asking me the questions. I do have some kids sometimes message me and ask me a question, and I just, answer it as simply as I can. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't say like a lot of them have come by, although it's starting to grow, I'm noticing, just based on the things I'm posting on Instagram. Because if you go to my Instagram page, it's just nothing but Catholic stuff on there now. Like it used to be like just, karate moves and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And you go on there, it's like all about Catholicism, So people would be like, whoa, I clicked on a karate page and I expect to see karate stuff. All I see is Catholic stuff. So
So you were talking about the Dominican priest did you say 8th grade?
8th grade, yes. Yeah.
So if you can, take us to the beginning of your personal journey and maybe some of the key developments in this. I mean, obviously, is in 8th grade, that was one key development, but if you could do that would be awesome. Very helpful.
Yeah. So I actually wasn't raised Catholic. I guess I kind of was. I converted when I was in 5th grade. So when I was about 10 years old, my mother was a Catholic, but she fell away from the faith when she was about 17, 18. She's from the Philippines. So she moved over here and met my dad. And my dad wasn't Catholic. He grew up in like a Baptist and Lutheran home. But growing up until about 5th grade, we were, honestly, I would consider us more agnostic. Like we didn't really pray together. Like we didn't really say grace before meals or anything like that. Like we didn't do any of Bible studies that I know a lot of Protestants do. We didn't even go to church. Like we only went only if family members invited us and we felt obligated. Like we didn't go out of our way to go to church. I know there was a period of time where we tried going to church, but then it just kind of petered out, and we were living like agnostics, like the whole lifestyle of it. And what happened is my uncle, who is Catholic, he's still Catholic, he went to Rome and got these rosaries blessed by Pope John Paul II. Wow. And he gave it to us as a gift. And at the time, I didn't know what a rosary was. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's, a crucifix. I don't know what a crucifix was either. It's a cross with Jesus on it. I didn't know much about it. And that very same week, my entire family, my mom, in some cases, my dad's story is a little different. I can get into that too. My brother, we all had these convictions to wanting to become Catholic. And my mom suddenly wanted to go back to the faith. My brother, out of the blue, said, hey, I think Taylor should attend a Catholic school. It was like, I had a dream of all of us going to church.
What?
In a Catholic church, kneeling. And I was like, I'd never knelt, in a church before. So it's pretty remarkable. And what happened, just we all became Catholic. It was really easy.
Almost overnight, right?
Almost overnight. Like, because at the time I was attending a public school, and there were things that were going on that I was kind of. The thing is, it's weird though, because I wasn't really a Christian. Like I believed in Jesus. I didn't go to church, but I didn't really have a full like conviction like I do now. Like I wasn't practicing anything at the time. But there was things going on in the public school that was really kind of disturbing to me. Like I was starting to learn, about like sexual education, like in 4th grade, and it just came across as weird to me, and my mom even found it weird. So that was all possibly another reason why she wanted to get me into a Catholic school.
What year was this?
This was a long time ago. It's been a while. Yeah, 2000s. I was 11. I'm 27 now. So okay. Yeah.
I'm just curious about when it was in 4th grade. So it just seemed very odd.
Yeah,
it was a little bit forced.
Yeah, it was very weird. It was I don't have to get into details of it, but it was just stuff that as a 4th grader, I didn't think I needed to know. Like It was very very weird. And so that was another reason why they probably pulled me out. But the one thing though that really got me was the Mass. Because I remember the first time I attended a Catholic Mass, I was just, there's something different about it. Because we went to Protestant churches before. We went to evangelical churches, and they had their own version of like the Eucharist, right? Where they have the bread and the wine. In most cases, it was like grape juice. But when I went to a Catholic church, there was just so much reverence for the Eucharist. And then I found out later, like, oh, they actually believe that this is really Jesus' body and blood. And to me, that was just amazing too, because the very next week, the same thing happened. I thought it was a one-time thing when I was a kid. I thought like, oh, this just happens every once in a while. Like, oh no, you guys do it every week. You do it every day. Like that was like surprising to me. I was like, you guys do this every single day. So much so that I started seeing other kids altar serving, and I was like, can I do that? Like, because I want to be. Because the thing is, I wasn't even Catholic yet. I was going through RCIC, which is like the RCIA for kids, and I was a little shy about it. But my mom asked the priest, said, "Hey, my son wants to altar serve. He's not Catholic yet. Can he do it?" And I said, like, yeah, that's totally fine. You just can't receive it. So I started altar serving before I was even Catholic.
I've never heard that in my life. Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, no, I was really drawn to it. And it was so random too. It just felt like I definitely know it was the grace of God just giving me something, because having that dream and my whole family just going through this process, and with my dad too, that's another thing I should mention too. So my dad didn't go to church with us at first. He was actually kind of he didn't not like it, but he was pretty reserved about it. He was really thinking about it more. So my mom, kind of concerned, asked the priest, say, hey, like, should I force him to go? Should I, what should I do about this? Right. And the priest said, like, don't force him. His name is Father John. He said, don't force him. Just go to mass. When you come home, have joy. Just be really happy. Just don't even say anything. He'll come on his own, right? And my mom did what she said, what he told her. Just came home every day, said like, "How are you doing?" Didn't even invite him, until one day he was like, "All right, I'll just come." And once he came, he also was really enthralled by the Eucharist. That was something that really got him too. And the thing that really got him the most, though, was when he decided to do RCIA. The teacher there looked just like his mom. And his mom passed away years before that. And that got him hooked. He's like, this woman talks like my mom. Because he remembers, because his mom was a very religious person. She was a Baptist. But he just felt really drawn to her. And that actually allowed him to,
be comfortable in that environment. Probably.
Yeah.
Wow. How did the rest of the family, because you're talking about, okay, come home, be joyful.
Mm-hmm.
How was the rest of the family through these years and, into your teenage years? Did you talk a lot about that profound pivot?
Yeah, we've talked about it.
Yeah.
Some people think we're crazy, of course, some of my family members, unfortunately, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Now it wasn't like smooth sailing either, though. There were definitely times where my faith greatly was challenged, and I kind of gave in to a lot of temptations, and same with my family too. We still remain Catholic, but there was definitely periods, at least in my life and my experience, where I kind of fell away from the faith and then came back to it. Actually, kind of recently, kind of like in the last year. I was kind of going through the motions of being Catholic until I had this kind of anxiety and depression episode, which I can talk about as well.
Yeah, please.
So about 5 years ago, I started my martial arts school, in-person martial arts school. And before that, I had went to college. And the last amount of catechism I really got was during confirmation. So I was about like 16. And after that, I really didn't study my faith at all after that. Like it was kind of like a every once in a while thing. Like it was just like I still go to mass every week, go to confession every once in a while, but I wasn't really taking my faith as seriously as I did when I first converted. Like when I was a kid, I did altar serving, I volunteered, I did so much stuff. And then as I got older, things kind of, I don't know if I became more cynical, but there was like a lot of things I focused more on, and I neglected my spirituality quite a bit. I think it was because of the people I surrounded myself with, and just kind of giving in to temptations and not really resisting anything. I think that was a big problem. And what happens is when I started my business, I was super neglectful of my prayer life, that I was getting these massive anxiety and panic attacks. And at the time, I didn't know it was my spiritual life that was lacking. But so what I did is I was reading a lot of self-help books. I was getting into health and fitness a lot more. I was watching my weight. I was doing all basically the right things. Sure. And it would help, but it wouldn't last. That's one thing I noticed, is it wasn't lasting. And I kept on getting these thoughts of maybe you should pray. Maybe there's something spiritual. And it was so weird. It almost felt like there was something blocking me from accepting that. Like there was like something saying, no, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't even try it. Right. And I even went to therapy. I even did therapy to figure out what was wrong. Like, why am I getting so depressed? Why am I getting so much anxiety? And, they would tell me things like, oh, you're probably not getting enough exercise. You're probably, you're probably lacking this certain vitamin. Like they're trying to give me all these things other than, hey, maybe it's because you haven't gone to confession in a while, or maybe you're not actively participating in mass. Maybe that's what it is. Of course, they're not going to say that because, it's a therapist. So I kept on having these panic attacks and these episodes where one day I prayed to God, and my prayers usually were starting like this, like, God, just take this away from me. Take this anxiety away, take this depression away. I don't want it. And it didn't go away. It kept on remaining, right? So that kind of affirmed my ignorance that, okay, maybe I was even having atheistic thoughts. I was even thinking, oh, maybe God doesn't even exist. Like I was having these I can't say for sure they were demonic, but they were very, very strong convictions to avoid anything that is Christian. I even looked into Eastern religion too. I even looked into Buddhism and stuff like that. And
did that, I'm just curious, did any of that come from speaking to the counselors and therapists, or a therapist? Did any of the Eastern type
of
practice?
they kind of had this, I got into a lot of like these deep breathing, like yoga kind of stuff, which it did help a little bit, but they kept on talking about emptying your mind, right? Emptying your mind. And I know better now. Like, I think what that does is, because you empty your mind so much, what are you allowing in? Right? Like now when I pray, I'm like, I'm not trying to empty myself. I'm trying to get God to fill me up. That's what I want. I want God to fill me up, not to be this empty, stoic nothingness.
Interesting. Yeah.
But what ended up happening is so my prayers wasn't working. And then again, this is by the grace of God. I don't know how I got this. How I was able to come up with this, but I changed my prayer. I said, okay, God, discipline me. Make me understand how to get rid of this. How do I get rid of this depression? How do I get rid of this anxiety? I'm going to keep myself open to you. And I want you to show me how to overcome this anxiety. And then, so weird, I go on Amazon, just trying to like shop for stuff. I see a brown scapular recommended on Amazon. Mind you, I haven't been looking up anything religious on Amazon. I know there's like this conspiracy where they listen to everything you're saying, but this was a prayer. So unless Amazon can read my mind, I don't think they'll know. And then I remembered, oh yeah, when I was 12, I got enrolled in the brown scapular, and then I lost my scapular. I never wore it again. So I was like, well, maybe I should wear it again. So what I did is I bought it on Amazon, started putting it on, wearing it regularly. And it just so happens that like my confirmation, this is going to make sense, but my confirmation sponsor, the saint I chose, was Saint Dominic. That's the one I chose. And there's a story of his mom having a dream of him, what she believed it was him, as a dog carrying like a fire stick and lighting up everything, right? Kind of like spreading out
Sure.
the gospel. And so what happened is that my wife adopted a dog. And so I first got the scapular, started putting it on, and then my wife adopted a dog. Now, she asked me for permission, but at the same time, she was like, I really, really want this dog. So I was like, okay, fine, I guess we'll get this dog. And we got this dog. And because the dog had such bad anxiety, which I totally related to, I had to take her out for a lot of walks. And during these walks, I thought, well, maybe I should just pray the rosary, right? I should just pray the rosary. I'm going for a walk anyway. And what ended up happening is when I started listening to the rosary with just my earbuds, I was getting all of these negative feelings towards it. I was getting all these doubts, all these criticisms. It was like somebody was talking in my ear telling me, hey, you need to stop doing this. It was like so weird. And then that's when I knew, okay, I need to fight this. I can't just let this win every single time. So, I was saying the Hail Marys. I was saying it louder as I was walking by. And, some people might have thought I was weird, like Hail Mary, like it was really weird. But what happened is that I started praying it more and more. And then the negativity, the darkness, all of that started to fade away. And that's when I was like, all right, I know what the problem is. I'm not, up until this point, I haven't taken my spiritual life seriously at all. I need to keep praying the rosary every day. And that's what I still do it to this day. It's my own therapy now. It's the God's therapy. I say the rosary every day. And I heard from an exorcist too, that, when you say the words Hail Mary, Satan flees. Like, he hates those words because that reminds him of his humiliation, and the more you say it, he's less likely, you're less likely to fall into temptation. And that's actually one of the promises that Our Lady says. So I started doing that. And then over time, I started reading about Saint Teresa of Avila. Again, this was just a book recommended on Amazon. So Amazon's just giving me all this stuff, or God's giving me this stuff through Amazon. Yeah. So I was reading about the mansions, the mansions of prayer. And I was like, wow, this is exactly like these temptations I was experiencing. Because at first I had doubts. I was like, well, maybe it's, maybe I'm overthinking it. I was like, wow, that's exactly what I was going through, was Satan trying to get me to not pray. Like, I really believe that he's trying to do that. He's trying to say, hey, you don't need prayer. Don't do it. I'm going to give you this temporary happiness, right? Through this yoga, through this Eastern meditation, but it never lasted. And, to this day, even when I do get some kind of depression or some kind of anxiety, my approach is way different now, because I know God's allowing it, because he's saying, hey, this is okay, because I want you to come back to me. I want you to come back to me. I don't want you to get into this other stuff. I'm going to allow you to have this because it's going to remind you that you can do nothing without me. Right. And that's the most comforting thought I experience, is that I can do nothing unless God strengthens me. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, as St. Paul says.
Yeah.
And, and then just one thing led to another. I started going to daily mass. I started going to confession weekly. I know people say do it once a month, but let's be honest, we all do something bad every week. It's easy to fall into sin so often. And and that's
so you
yeah.
mentioned that there was a drought as recent as a year ago, I believe, or you implied it.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, so was that related to what you were just saying? Like, you believe he permitted some anxiety, some depression, and did that lead you back or in part, did that lead you back?
It did, because the thing is, the fact that my business was doing well and I had other stuff that was good, I still kept on getting that anxiety and depression, which God only allows, because if he allows it, it'll make you shift your priorities. It's kind of like the prodigal son. He went out, spent his whole inheritance, lost everything, and then realized, oh, I have a father who loves me, right? And that I went through that same experience where I was, taking everything for granted. Like I just took so many things for granted, and in my darkest moments, I had to turn to God. Like I had no other option. Um, and I feel like a lot of people experience that too in their life, where a lot of bad things happen to them, and it's helped me understand suffering a lot more, because a lot of people want to get away from suffering, and I do too. I don't like suffering. I don't think anyone likes it, but it's there because we're not meant to be eternally happy here. Like if you're seeking happiness here all the time, which is what like the world is always trying to push, is like, you got to be happy all the time. It's about what feels good. Everything's fine as long as you're happy, which is a lot of what these Eastern religions were teaching me, is like they didn't have any concept of sin. And when you don't believe there's sin, you don't believe there's negative consequences of it, you're just going to be miserable, because you're going to do things that you think are good for you, but it's in the end, it's just polluting your soul. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think just God allows these things because you'll just be on your knees, and you won't know what else to do. That's what I was at. I was like, I don't know what else to do other than pray. And the fact that I was resistant to it was even more intriguing, because why would I resist something that's good for me? Like that's a very interesting, like that's a very weird thought to have. Like if you're doing something that is oh well, I'll be honest. Sometimes I know I should work out, but I don't do it. I know what's good for me, right? Yeah. But like how hard is it to like say a Hail Mary? Like how difficult is that? Like it's really not. It's like you're saying the words. Like, and if anybody experiences that, just fight it. Fight it. We're called the church militant for a reason. We're constantly in this battle between Satan, and we're constantly fighting him off. Like, so to think that you can lay back and nothing happen to you.
Well, and in fact, when you resist, it is a form of sleeping. Like Jesus said in the garden, pray lest you enter into temptation. So those that are not praying are asleep in a very real sense. And I think a lot of people that I've spoken to feel that exact resistance, because they know what's right, and yet it's so difficult to overcome. And then many people have come to that same point, like you said, just on their knees. What do I do next?
Yeah. And even like St. Augustine, I think it was him who said this. I think he said, you will not, I don't know if it was him or St. Alphonsus Liguori. One of them said, if you don't pray daily, you're not going to be saved.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's a pretty bold statement, because there's years I didn't pray daily. So now I'm like, I look up like, okay, what's the minimum required? 15 minutes? Gee, that's how long it takes to say a rosary. It's like,
that's a fast rosary.
Yeah, I guess a fast rosary. Yeah. I guess if you say it in Latin, it might be a little faster, but
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think of what you said is, when did you do that Christian post on your other
on my other channel? Yeah, it was actually it was like right about the time when I did have that dark episode of because at that point I was like, man, I feel like so many people feel the same way. Like I don't feel like I'm the only person who experiences this. And I teach martial arts to kids, so I get to interact with kids pretty often. And there's I mean, I have a lot of kids who grew up in broken homes. Typically like martial art classes, it kind of draws those kind of kids, just typically, at least in my school. And some of these kids are just so broken because they don't have any concept of, I mean, maybe they do, but some of them are so broken, and because they don't really understand what a father is like. They don't understand that we have a father in heaven. So I decided, what, I'm going to make a post. I'm going to tell everyone, hey, I'm going to start posting these messages on my channel. I got a lot of positivity. I got some negativity, but in the end, though, I started getting emails from parents saying, hey, my son, like, because I was talking about the Our Father in one of my videos, and I just said, I was talking about how God is our Father. He's not just some abstract, figure. He's a personal God. That's what we believe in as Christians. He's a personal person. And they told me that they just took that lesson to heart, because you said it,
Wow.
because, they look up to you. So I was like, all right, well, I definitely, have a task now. I'm going to start putting these messages in my videos. And sometimes, I've had some Protestants who, I mentioned something a little Catholic, they don't like it. So they're like, oh, just, don't put in any Catholic stuff, just be Christian. And in the beginning, I kind of gave into that. I just kind of made it very basic and very,
You want to run feathers. Yeah.
yeah. And then as I was doing it, I was like, you know what, this is not, no, I'm just going to make this as Catholic as I can, because honestly, like, if I talk about a saint and what they have to say, like, especially like Saint Teresa of Lisieux, which I think a lot of kids can relate to, because of her message, the little way, I think it's really powerful. I can't just not talk about that. Like, that's profound. I'm not going to just skip over that because I have some, non-denominational Christians upset with that. Like, and I have a respect for them too, because I currently attend a parish called an ordinariate parish,
Okay.
where it was actually a former Anglican priest that all became Catholic. So the type of studying they have done as an Anglican priest, I can really respect. Like, I think some of them have to memorize like huge portions of the Bible, word per word. And so I have a lot of respect for it. But at the same time, I can't remember who said this. I think, I don't know if it's St. Thomas Becket. I'm probably getting this wrong. But one of the former Protestant pastors used to say that if you study history, you fail to be Protestant.
Oh, you're talking about John Henry Newman.
John Henry Newman. Yes, John Henry Newman. Oh yeah, we just started it.
Asked for his intercession. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, he's helping you out because I totally forgot.
No. That's good. Are you talking about the to go deep into history is to cease to be Protestant?
Yes, that's what I was thinking of. Yeah, I just couldn't remember the name, but yeah, I think it's robbing people from the truth when you don't present it in the Catholic way.
And I applaud you for that, because I don't think that, there's absolutely no malice behind it. Obviously, you're just sharing the truth. And there are going to be people that will say, that's a little uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
That discomfort could actually be a seed, as we've seen with many people that started off very anti-Catholic, or not even anti-Catholic. They so severely misunderstood, to your point about Fulton Sheen, they so severely misunderstood the position of the church that they carry that bias with them. And so it takes someone to almost kind of pierce through that barrier. Obviously, God working in that situation, but good for you for doing that. On the topic, actually, do you want to add anything to that?
No, go ahead.
On the topic of saints, why don't you tell the listeners about Saint Vitalis of Gaza? Is that right? Wasn't that the reason? You had a phenomenal post that I read on your channel, and I'd love for you to share his story, because I think that it is a powerful message for, well, any day and age.
Yeah. So Saint Vitalis of Gaza, he was a priest. And what happened is that he started, when he was up until he was about 60, he lived as a hermit. So he just kind of lived on his own. But what happened is that he wanted to return to the city. And when he came to the city, he worked like a normal day job, like everyone else. And every night he would go to the brothel. And the people of the town were like, why is this priest going to a brothel? Like, that's really like disrespectful. It's horrible. Like, I can't imagine my own parish priest doing that. Like, So a lot of people were pointing fingers at him and saying, this man's a sinner. They even went to the bishop and said, hey, you need to excommunicate him. You need to laicize him. He can't be a priest and do that. And what happened is that he said nothing. He didn't defend himself. He just let it happen. People were ridiculing him in the street, and it got so bad that he even got killed. Like, people just killed him because of how much shame he's bringing upon their town. And then at his funeral, all the women from the brothel showed up and gave testimony to say, hey, this man, he didn't use us. He paid for our service, let us rest, said that, you're not gonna sin tonight. That's what he told them. You're not gonna sin tonight. I'm just gonna pray with you. And he found ways to get them out of there. He found ways to help them, some cases join convents. He was doing everything he can. And these women were saying, why don't you tell everyone about this? Like, don't you know that people are saying these bad things about you? And they said, well, no, because if they find out, I'm not going to be allowed to come in here anymore. Like, the people running this place aren't going to let me in. So, we're just going to keep quiet, right? Just keep quiet about it. And I'm going to share with you the gospel. And he's preaching to these women. And, and one of the things I forgot to put this in the post, but I remember it now, is that when he was killed, he was holding a scripture, holding like I don't know if it was like a parchment, a piece of scripture that said, judge not lest you be judged. And when he died, that's what people saw. And then, of course, when they went to his funeral, yeah, it's incredible. It's one of those stories where
I had no idea.
That's exactly the point, right? That's the brilliance of this man, is that I didn't even know his name, and I had to look it up because I've heard the story more than once, and I had to look up his name. I couldn't remember Saint Vitalis of Gaza. I couldn't remember that.
And this was in the 600s, right around there.
I believe so. I might have to double check, but I think it was pretty early on.
But
I think
and
he
even
might
the
be.
way you wrote, I think the way you wrote it as well, it should teach us a very, very dramatic lesson as you start, and you don't jump ahead. You read brothel and you're like, how the heck is this gentleman a saint? Oh, he must have repented of spending time in the brothel. Like, none of that hit me, that he was actually preaching the gospel. And I even read an article about how many of these women they went on to become mothers, wives, just being healed, because he was saying, like you said, you're not going to sin tonight, just rest. Unbelievable. So for this day and age, it should remind us about avoiding rash judgment.
Yeah.
And about
sure.
Committing detraction or calumny, and how serious that is. We have no clue who is out there preaching the gospel and being incredibly shrewd and strategic in how they reach people. But all we see is a headline. Not to detract too much from your story, but I thought that was fascinating that you posted that. And I think it's a really, really strong message and strong reminder for everyone. So
yeah, no, I like that story a lot because sometimes, like, and I always, this another reason why I was hesitant to make a channel and to post stuff is because I didn't want to get to a point where I was doing it for the wrong reasons. Like, I think sometimes, like, at first I was going to be completely anonymous. I was just going to have a black screen and just not show my face. I didn't want anyone to know my name. But then, so at the same time, I read that story and I think about him often before I post anything, because sometimes when I look at a video, it gets like 100 views or doesn't get as much traction, right? And then I think, like, well, why does that matter?
Yeah.
One soul could have saw this and it might have changed them. It could totally change. Like, just like your videos too. Like, it doesn't matter how many views we get. What matters is the content and the quality of what's out. And if people are seeing it and it changes at least one person, then that's a win. and I have to remind myself. In fact, I have Saint Joseph behind me. Let's see if
Yep.
I can pull this up a little bit. Yeah,
Yep.
it's awesome. It's my favorite one of Saint Joseph.
Beautiful. Yep.
Yeah, it's so cool. But I want to get one of Saint Vitalis too. I have a hard time finding it, but I'm gonna try to
I'm
find one.
sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, because it's a good reminder, because we live in an age where, like, you can post something on social media and get likes, get comments, and sometimes I've caught myself just obsessing over the comments or the likes, and just like going back and seeing, oh, this how many views did it get, or how many, when I'm thinking like, wait a minute, why did I post this in the first place? This is
Great point, man.
to
Great. Yeah,
yeah, like
that's a nice rebuke of for me as well. Just a reminder, because I got off of social media years ago, and in part it was that idea. It's like, why do I care about the likes? What is it in the likes? You know what I mean?
mhm,
And I'm
yeah,
the type that, well, through God's grace, to just say I have no business doing that. But then the YouTube thing was purely because God convicted me. I didn't want to didn't want to do it. You kind of want to be anonymous, or just say, you know what, maybe I'll just talk to a friend. But if He wants you to do something, do it.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, because I mean, there's so much content on YouTube, and the fact that you just stumbled across mine, you know, we don't know who's gonna stumble across this video. Like, we don't know someone, or any videos that we might put out, and even if a video has 90 views, the 91st person might completely revert back to the faith or become Catholic from it. I know people who've done that, who've just come across like Father Mike Smith's and just be drawn to his message, and then just decide, all right, I'm going to be Catholic, you know? And God gives us these tools to reach people. And there's so much, as you know, there's so much secularism on every social media, like so much of it, that I think it's our job as Christians to do what we can to at least make people aware and plant the seeds of doubt. Because that's what helped me too, is um when I got the scapular, I was also looking at videos on YouTube, about the faith. Like, I was looking up about the scapular. I was seeing, do I need to be re-enrolled again? I was like looking up these questions.
Yeah.
Then another channel, Sensus Fidelium, showed up, and I started just binging so many of their videos. And that really enriched my faith more. And I wouldn't have had that unless they posted it. Like, I wouldn't have known.
Well, not only that, what you said earlier, no matter who's watching, if someone has a conviction to start a channel of some type to defend the Catholic faith, I would get behind that every single time if they feel that they're supposed to. In other words, if they say, oh, it's the market is saturated, that's how we speak in business terms. Why would you enter the market, let's say, if it's saturated? You better do your market research to make sure that there is a niche that needs what you have. And of course, YouTube would say the same. I would say, you get a conviction from God, get on there and defend the faith.
Mm-hmm.
You need more and more and more people that of course understand and really have a fervor to defend the faith. But thank God, because I will often find people like you, channels like yours, just in doing, again, I don't even think I'm searching. It just pops up. I don't know if it's keyword driven or what. It really doesn't matter. As long as I found you, then you can share your story. Anyway, anything else you want to add? Any other topic you want to touch on about whether it's your journey, personal journey, or anyone else in the family? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I guess if anybody's experiencing like anxiety or depression, because I experienced that, there are two things I would say are good places to start. Is make a very strong confession. That's one thing I did when I was going through this. Is I took out I still have it actually. It's like a examination of conscience. Now, I know some churches, they have like a really small, like kind of like little pamphlet. This thing is 10 pages. So, and I just basically looked through that, and I looked at everything. I looked at my whole life, and I wrote down everything that I could remember that I've done. And then I called the priest, I called the church saying, hey, I need to get to a confession, right? Like make it like a priority. Like this is your soul, right? And they did. And then I made like a really long confession. And just doing that is just so like admitting when you're wrong and when you've done something wrong, and really being like repentant, like truly repentant, and not wanting to do it again, and asking God to do it. Because there's one thing to like go to somebody, like go to a person who you've wronged.
Yep.
And you say sorry to them. That person may not necessarily really forgive you. And I know I've been through that. There's been people I've wronged that I've said sorry to. They haven't forgiven me for it. And it's okay. Like I'm not expecting them to. But when you go to God and you ask him for forgiveness, it's he died for us. His forgiveness is so immense. Even the people that killed him, he forgave them. The people that tortured him, that crucified him. So if you think that your sin is so great that God's mercy isn't better than that, go to go to confession. And then if you can, try to go to mass more than once a week. Like if you can make it a habit to go every day, like if your schedule allows and it doesn't affect too much of your state in life, if you can do that, then those two things, they may not completely take away anxiety, but it's going to shift how you look at it. Because I look at it now as kind of like a good thing, because I'm like, well, this is just a reminder that in heaven I'm not going to have this.
Yeah. Great. Great. Well said, for sure. And we know that when we hide things, that they will manifest in the body. And
yeah.
So great point. Just to voice these things and have contrition, which comes through prayer, of course, and comes through doing an examination. I've never seen an examination like that. That's actually incredible.
Yeah. I think if I had to look up, what was that?
Send it to me.
Yeah. I can send it to you. I literally just looked up traditional Catholic examination of conscience. I just looked that up, and it was like one of the first few results. But I'll send it to you though as well. It's very thorough, which is good.
That's awesome. Yeah. Well, cool. Taylor, thank you. Keep up the great work. Good on you for making that pivot, and actually several pivots. And God bless your family for what a miracle that happened when you were 10, right? 10?
Yeah, 10, 11 years old. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. So I want to thank you and thank everyone for listening. And please share. As I say, please like. I won't care based on what Taylor said. Can't care about the likes, but they help the algorithm, and they certainly help others find videos. And if you're going to find videos, what better videos than those discussing the truth? Until next time, take care and God bless.